Hello, everyone, and I am excited to welcome back Kelley Hunter as my guest today. She is a depth astrologer and astromythologist who specializes in the studies of the cosmic feminine and psychology and how cosmology weaves together with the archetypes and consciousness. She's also started diving into the Kuiper Belt objects, which I find really
Mhm.
interesting, and has written a couple of books about Lilith and also a coloring book about the planetary gods and goddesses, which includes some of those Kuiper Belt objects as well. So thank you so much for being here today, Kelley.
I enjoy talking with you, so thanks for the invitation back.
Yeah, and what grabbed my attention to invite you back was was it came onto my radar that Algol, which is an aspect of Black Moon Lilith, is going to conjunct Uranus. And you also pointed out to me Mars is along for the ride as well. And this is not too long after this upcoming Cancer new moon. And this new moon is sandwiched by two Capricorn full moons. So we were just going to kind of dive in and talk about all these aspects and how they're working together and what they're inviting us to reflect on. So
Reflection is a good theme for this too. You came up with a good word.
yeah, I guess that's what I feel like I've been up to, since we're in Cancer season right now. It's been a lot of trips down memory lane. And with this last Capricorn full moon, what I was feeling with that Capricorn full moon being at 1 degree Capricorn and this next one being at 29 degrees Capricorn, I actually was kind of reflecting on Pluto's transit through Capricorn, because that's
Mhm.
something I've actually been experiencing personally as well. Like I've had Pluto on my Sun and Venus, which is almost finished happening. So
Yes.
it really had me reflecting on, wow, what are all of these changes and transformations we've been going through? Because I feel like when Pluto moves back into Capricorn in September, what I'm kind of feeling is that it will be a reflective time of like, wow, this feels so old, and like this is really the end of this, before Pluto moves into Aquarius for the next how many
Yeah.
years?
Till what is it, 2049 or something like
Yes,
that? Something like
somewhere in the
that. 20
2040s.
years anyway. It's 20 years.
Okay.
And 2044, I think. And so yes, you mentioned the two Capricorn full moons.
Hmm.
And on the July 21st, that last second one, the full moon is conjunct Uranus. I mean, Pluto, even though Pluto's just still into Aquarius.
Yeah.
So we'll have all of this Cancer energy, all of this reflection time before that Pluto goes back into Capricorn, and then we'll be less attached, I hope, because that's one of the themes with Cancer too, is letting go of attachments, of
Mhm.
habits, of like automatic parts of ourselves that we're just so used to that give us a comfort level. And these are times where, we can't rest in our comfort level. We need to find that level of security inside, but realize that in order to grow, we can't remain, plants in a little tiny pot. We need to stretch our root systems and grow. And that's kind of, to me, what's going on in our consciousness right now. It's like we're growing and we need to use the Aries North Node, the leading edge of collective consciousness right now, to make new initiatives, to explore new territory, to go where no one has gone before, according to the Star Trek motto. So that's a really important theme to take in, to beware of our habits, especially those that are not good for us. We've all got some of those. And we have also this reflection of memories. And I've been having a lot of that lately myself, like, remembering a lot and just kind of fitting that into all of the decades that I've lived, in my life, and how some of those memories seem like another lifetime almost.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. I feel the same way sometimes, and I don't have as much life experience as you, so I can't imagine. Um, but
Yeah,
it's
Capricorn is about what's useful, and some of these dwelling in memories isn't always very useful. Looking too much to the past is not useful, especially when we need to be moving forward and envisioning where we want to be going, in our world, personally and collectively.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because what also comes up for me is how I get what you're saying about how sometimes the memories don't serve us, but what I also feel is that there are people from the past who have been like bookmarks through time that were
Mm.
ahead of their time, that we're now remembering and bringing forth their knowledge. Like I could even go as far back as thinking back to, Atlantis, like not that we really have proof of
Oh,
anything,
yes.
but we have these memories of how we used to work with the elements to do whatever we needed to get done. And I feel like some of that
Mm.
is coming forward again with this Uranus Algol conjunction, because like as you wrote in your book, Algol and Taurus is very much about seeing what's behind the scenes of nature, what's behind the cosmic order. And I really feel like with Uranus coming in, it's this revelatory energy of like, how do we work with nature again? How can we develop technologies that don't just
Mm. Mm.
extract from nature, but actually work in harmony with it? Because I kind of feel like sometimes I
Mm.
feel like this time we're in is a recapitulation of the fall of Atlantis, like when perhaps we were abusing the elements, and our will was not quite aligned with divine will, and it feels like an opportunity to sort of see through where those misalignments might be. And I just
Yeah.
keep hearing the word see through.
See through. Well, seeing through the eye of Medusa is quite an eye to be looking through or looking into as a reflection also.
Mm.
And you're talking about Algol, which does mark the eye of Medusa in the constellation Perseus. It can be seen like that. And it is a fixed star. So fixed stars are like the background, the backdrop of the planetary movements.
Mhm.
As the planets move in front of this screen of that seems they move so slowly in the 26,000 year precession of the equinoxes. One star takes 72 years to move through 1 degree.
Mhm.
So it's pretty spectacular that the planet Uranus, that has an 84-year orbit, is conjuncting Algol at this point and getting activated by the planet Mars. And I believe the Uranus-Mars conjunction is on July 15th. And, it's visiting Algol for a period of time. And I'm not sure they all line exactly, but
Mhm.
enough to say this is a pretty potent time where the eye of Medusa. And I'm going to read a quote that I have in my book from Sylvia Pereira, who's a Canadian Jungian psychologist. She says, well, Algol is like the paralyzing eye of Medusa that penetrates, and here's the quote, with an objectivity like that of nature itself and our dreams, boring into the soul to find the naked truth, to see reality beneath all of its myriad forms and the illusions and defenses it displays.
Mm. Wow. We could really use that energy with I have Neptune kind of coming into my my scope now with Neptune at 29 degrees. And something that I think is so interesting that connects with this story is that the Sabian symbol for where Neptune is the great stone face. And when Medusa looks at people, they turn to stone. And I was really reflecting on that. Like, so, I can see a few things that represents. And the other thing that's interesting is that I noticed this year, especially, it always helps when these cycles return every year. You look back at what was I doing last year? I'm always drawn to ancient stones in Cancer season. Um,
Hmm.
so I think that's interesting because they definitely hold records, but I
Huh?
guess perhaps this Medusa eye is Algol is helping us to sort of see into that. I don't know. What
Well, also that we're having two Capricorn full moons, and Capricorn is a sign of stone and rock
right.
and history and tradition and living on the earth in an honoring way, that's sustainable. So that is maybe part of why, Capricorn and Cancer are opposite signs, and any sign can be supported and balanced out with the opposite sign.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of full moons, that we get to use both of them. So both of those signs.
What's kind of occurring to me as well, with like the the Neptunian illusion, it's like we've kind of
Mhm.
got our feet in two different worlds right now as well.
Oh gosh, yes.
Yes, and
In a couple of ways, many
yeah,
ways.
for sure. And so I think that's why it can feel a bit confusing because on one hand, we're watching all of these systems kind of crumble and the world go crazy and so much destruction and grief. And on the other hand, we're seeing what I feel are new realities being created. And
Mhm.
so it can be kind of hard to center yourself between the two, but I feel like that great stone face really it reminds me of this clip of Joseph Campbell where he's
Mm.
talking about this statue. It's like a Buddha statue with a central face and one face looking to the right and one face looking to the
Uh-huh.
left.
Mm.
And he explains how our goal is to see the duality, but to stay in the middle, to see the masculine and the feminine, but to find that within ourselves. And it just can be kind of a confusing time when you're trying to situate yourself there. And the contrast is so great.
Yeah. Mm. Well, as you said, Neptune's at 29 Pisces, 56 minutes. Like that's almost in Aries, and it stops and
Yeah.
goes retrograde, and it sort of stays there right on that cusp. That's a major cusp between Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac, and Aries, the first sign of the zodiac. So we're there and we're like treading water, right? Because Neptune's the god of the sea. We're sort of treading water. And as you said, that stone face. So there's a longer version of the image is a majestic rock formation resembling a face is idealized by a boy who takes it as his ideal of greatness. And as he grows up, he begins to look like it.
Ooh, I love
Yeah,
that. It's like
I
really
love
about
that.
holding your vision.
Yes. Well, that is part of the thing about treading water too, is
Mhm.
clarifying our vision. And, kind of like there are a lot of muddied waters. So
Mhm.
what is the vision we want to carry forward? Because Neptune is the big dream, capital B, capital D. So it has to do with our collective dream. And we're
Mm,
right on the cusp of it going into Aries,
mhm.
which it does next March, I think, March or April.
I think so.
And so here we have Pluto changing sign from Capricorn into Aquarius, which will be, confirmed on, I think it's November 19th. It
Mhm.
doesn't go back anymore, it goes into Aquarius, and there we are. And
Yeah.
then in just a few months, Neptune goes into Aries, and also Uranus is going to be going from Taurus into Gemini the next year. So all three of those collective consciousness planets,
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, are changing sign. And
Yeah.
two of them from Earth into air, and then the Neptune from its own sign, Pisces, into Aries, fire. Like, wow. I mean, that's even a little hard to think about.
It feels refreshing to think
Yeah.
about Neptune moving into Aries, like, all right, because I'm an Aries rising. I like to go, I like to get it, start the project. And, but what I have to say is when you said Neptune is the big dream, I felt a sense of relief that there's a little more time because it feels like there's still some things we need to see and learn before all of those planets move and we start initiating a new we already have been working towards this new consciousness for a long time, but it just still feels like there's a little bit more we need. Maybe that's an
Well, like we're
understatement.
saying about cancer and being attached to some things of the past, we've got to let go. And there's the
Yeah.
grief that comes up with
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
So, and another reference in terms of feeling like we have a foot in both worlds is that eclipse we had on April 8th.
Mm-hmm.
And that was exactly conjunct Chiron, the wounded healer or the shaman of the solar system,
Yeah.
which wants to align the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical. And so it does feel like sometimes with that we're aligning, we're working to click in these different levels, and that there is a transition phase that can feel like we're in between. We're
Mm-hmm.
not where we were, and we're not yet where we're going.
Well, and one thing that I think is kind of cool is like with Saturn being in Pisces, it's like that's where we're supposed to be right now. It's almost like we're supposed to be, gosh, he must be so uncomfortable there, right? But like, it's like
I
this.
don't think Saturn is going to be uncomfortable anywhere.
Okay.
Saturn is like, I can do this. I'm dealing with this. I'm in Pisces right now, and I'm shaping that water, the shape of
Oh,
water, you know?
I love it. I saw him as like a volcano where the magma runs into the ocean and then it solidifies in the ocean,
Mhm.
like a, and I can see him almost like as a little fish claiming his house, kind of like, okay, this is my house right here, the little lava house, and making sure he can find some kind of boundaries in the ocean. Um, but
Well, boundaries for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and
And
then developing
we
that
need,
spiritual practice too. Sorry.
yeah. Absolutely, spiritual practice and the discipline that Saturn requires to work with the energy and clarify your shape, find your, kind of, little home in the sea, find a steadying influence that you can hold on to like an anchor
Yeah.
a bit. And that this is certainly a spiritual thing. And also to note that Neptune is going retrograde imminently, and so is Saturn,
Yeah.
both in Pisces. So we're having this sort of stop moment. I don't want to call it a pause moment, but like they're saying, this is as far as we're getting right now. You
Mm-hmm.
got some work to do, before we can move on. And that goes along with Pluto going back into Capricorn as well, in
Yeah.
a very nice relationship with Neptune in Pisces.
Yeah. And one of the things Saturn showed me, I feel like when he went into Pisces, was this is a life between lives review. Like this is a for the collective. Like this is where we're reviewing everything we've done and how it's made each other feel. And with his
Mm.
his karmic energy, that's kind of like what I've felt as well. But yeah, again, I guess it is the Cancer energy that's really making me feel like some relief that it's not all going way too fast.
Well, those Saturn and Neptune going retrograde is also, slowing things down a bit so we can go back over and clear our illusions and confusions about where we've been, and to really try to look through that Eye of Medusa without fear, with like right in your face kind of stuff. It's like we've got to look at what has been going on
Yeah.
and the shadow side that we each carry. And as we clear our kind of stuff, and it's a bit of a challenge because well, if we're going to name it astrologically, I would attribute it to Jupiter in Gemini, which is the most open-minded sign. And Jupiter is about belief systems. So this is like, are you open-minded enough to take in a different point of view
Yeah.
to see where you might have been off base, or where you had, you see, sometimes with Neptune, we see what we want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Which can be so harmful at times to ourselves, you know? And when you were talking about Jupiter in Gemini, the other thing I feel is more of an objectivity, so that these things may not feel as personal when we're looking at them or reflecting on them as well. And I feel like with this whole moon sandwich of Capricorn and Cancer, I've felt so much mother line healing in my own life. And I think that collectively we've been really working on our feminine side a lot. And perhaps with Mars coming up, it feels like it's time for us to start like working on that masculine side as well. With Mars coming up on Algol and Uranus. And I know there's a lot of other invitations in the sky as well. I'm sure you can elaborate more. But what was so interesting is I've been reading this book about moon phase astrology, and written by Raven Caldera. And he takes sort of a shamanic approach to the different moon phases. And the Capricorn full moon is the grandmother moon, and the Cancer new moon is the mother's daughter moon. So I thought, how cool is that? That these are kind of, there's this ancestral sandwich kind of happening for the feminine and the mother line, you know?
Well, that is very Cancer, that is for sure. And ruled by the moon, which is the family ancestry and the line we come from. And so you emailed me about this, right? Because we don't get these moon sandwiches very often. The
Yeah.
moon, it's 27 or 8 days. So we have to have a very early full moon. In the Capricorn, for instance, it was at 1+. Have another one like at 29 toward the end of the sign. That's the only way it can happen. And it doesn't happen all that often.
Yeah.
And then the one in the middle, the new moon in Cancer on July 5th is at 14+ degrees. And that's aligned with the star Sirius. That's the brightest star we see. And a very important star in Egyptian mythology. It's related to Isis, the great goddess. And it is even in if we look at the moon mansions in Vedic astrology, it's connected to the mother of all the Buddhas, the great mother of all the gods.
Wow.
That's a very powerful place for the moon. And it is at that point on the new moon, it's not exact, but it's squaring the nodes, which is our collective line of destiny. So it's so important to let the waters wash clear, to reflect, upon, and that's a beautiful Cancer thing. It reflects on things, it considers things, it contemplates things, it doesn't come back with instant feedback like Gemini does. It feels through things like a cow with 7 stomachs kind of thing. So Cancer is kind of slow. So this is a kind of a slower time. Those 2 planets in Pisces, another water sign, have gone retrograde to also kind of like the wave is going out, and we're looking back at what's being taken out on that wave. even in our own lives, what is washing through and cleansing us to invite us into more growth and more health and more wealth, and to be able to accomplish our vision and not try to take too much with us. We can't take it all, and that's a beautiful thing. Capricorn is the minimalist sign. So it's like, what can you use if you had to leave your house at a moment's notice, which many people have had to do lately? What would you take with you?
Hmm.
That's a good question to ask. And that's also a Uranus and Taurus question, because Taurus is about stuff.
Yeah.
And Uranus is like, free yourself up from all that stuff because you can't carry it. It's
Yeah.
too big a weight. So
Yeah.
here we have Uranus, saying, wake up, different level of consciousness. Um, if you're not using it, give it to somebody who can.
Yeah.
Mars saying, do it, just do it.
I love
And this,
that. I love that motivation.
yes, well, Mars definitely gives motivation, and it's slow to move in Cancer. So we're getting a little build up time to kind of consider, what have I got, and do I need this, and can I use this, and do I want this anymore? And also things like, the pictures you have hanging in your house. Is this kind of old? Am I moving into a new energy where I want some new images to guide me or inspire me, like that stone face? What are the images that are inspiring to you that you want to move toward? And it's probably changing to some extent. And so that's another thought of how to work with this kind of it feels like extended, but it's not really extended in time. It's just extra Cancer Capricorn energy.
Yeah. I really love what you're saying, and it was so beautiful how you sort of paint this picture of allowing things to be washed away. I've been feeling that so much, and I actually just changed my altar because I'm feeling this energy of like, all right, it's time to start changing things around. And really interesting thing happened. I was looking through all my old prayers and intentions that I put under my offering bowl. And one of them was to release Julian Assange. And and the next
Well,
day,
that happened.
yeah, so I put it back under, right? And the next day I found out he was released. And
Wow.
I was inspired to do that because there's another medium, Amanda Ellis, who I love to watch her videos occasionally, and she had been making videos about him and
Mm.
asking for people to pray and set intentions for his release. And I literally was just like, gosh, in the paradigm we live in, I can't see this happening. But look how powerful that was for, one, I see this excellent example of leadership where you're inspiring people, towards supporting truth and freedom of speech. And then on the other hand, like the power of group intention and prayer, I was just
Mm.
really amazed by that. So I think allowing those old beliefs of things can't change, like to wash away,
Oh,
lean into that like
yeah.
power of frequency and vibration and intention.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That to me, that's a key word of our time is frequency. What frequency are we vibing at?
Mhm,
And sometimes I notice I drop down
mhm,
and their little fear swirls.
mhm,
And it's like, okay, I got to get out of this. I got to lift that back up. And
mhm,
so what is going to lift me back up? And it's different in different times and based on whatever situation that is. But that is so important. And I think that is one of the fine tunings also, the frequency.
mhm.
So I've been doing these ancient Vedic mantras that come from way thousands of years ago, and they're put together. They don't always mean anything, but they have an intention, and you can add your own. but they have frequency based on the syllables and the sounds, and it has changed my body. You know, you mentioned earlier working with the elements. There's a whole practice of the different mantras for the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether, which they call space. So it's been very interesting a practice. And I took a flight recently, and I was sitting next to a young woman who is interested in astrology. So we got into quite a talk, and
Awesome.
she's also very involved with the movement. She's in her mid-20s, and she's involved with this group of these groups of people who gather together, and they are interested in electronic music and working with frequencies. And I was really glad to hear about that, because I thought that was a really cool thing. You mentioned, how we use technology to, and with frequency to raise that and to work with that on a manifestational level. So that is a level of consciousness that I think is somewhat like an invitation from the Kuiper Belt and all these new things. Pluto is the first of the Kuiper Belt objects, in fact. And so it's a kind of level of consciousness. I'm going to quote again. I love this quote. It's from David Bohm, who was one of the scientists who developed quantum physics. And he says, beyond the visible garment of the universe, beyond the mirage of molecules, the Maya of physicality, lies an inherently invisible, seamless matrix made up of nothingness. This invisible nothing silently orchestrates, instructs, guides, governs, and compels nature to express itself with infinite creativity, infinite abundance, and unfaltering exactitude into a myriad of designs and patterns and forms.
I love that so much.
Oh, actually, that's a Deepak Chopra quote.
Oh,
David talked about the external presence of consciousness as the quantum field.
yeah.
But oh, wait, stop a minute. I was just going somewhere. Like, oh, so in this ancient Vedic teaching that I'm following, they talk a lot about Shiva and Shakti, the relationship between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. And the divine masculine, Shiva, is that invisible matrix that is the center point, that is the beginning point for anything to manifest. And it's the divine feminine that takes it away and manifests all these myriad of forms and nature's variety in her playing with it. But it always goes back to, there's no Shiva without Shakti, no Shakti without Shiva. And so we're finding now a new relationship between the divine masculine and feminine in levels of consciousness. And that then comes down into the way we relate with each other. It starts out being an inner experience of our own Shiva and Shakti relationship. So that is really important to consider and to tune into as much as we can. It's a pretty deep and ancient spirituality.
Well, it's interesting when you were talking about how Shiva, he's like the energy that has the idea or starts it, and then the Shakti goes off and does it. That reminds me of my marriage so much, which cracks me up. But also you reminded me of how in your book you write about Algol and darkness and the void. And what I was really reflecting on in my own journey is how the void used to be so scary to me. The void, I was always so afraid to be in the void space where you don't know what's about to happen. There's just a lot of unknown. And I've noticed as I've connected more with my inner feminine, and the more that I have learned to surrender, which probably is a part of developing a, more masculine safety for myself, that void now feels like this really comfy, cozy, velvety, dark womb space that I'm just so held in.
That's it. They call it the holy womb chakra.
Mm.
And it's not one of the seven. It's a spiritual or maybe etheric. I don't even quite know where you define it, but the holy womb chakra is the place where the divine mother puts the soul spark in you through every lifetime.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and
Yes.
it reminds me as well, I forgot to mention earlier that when I started looking into this Algol Uranus conjunction and Mars, as you brought to my attention too now, I started feeling the soul of Nikola Tesla coming through. And I had
Mm.
never looked at his chart with Lilith placements before, but sure enough, when I pulled his chart up, he had Uranus conjunct Algol, and I thought, wow, this is unreal. Like, you just can't make this stuff up. But what he
There
was
was a period of time when there was a whole bunch of people born with that conjunction,
right, because Uranus
right?
moves so slowly, right? That makes sense. So that, and also that period of time, like the late 1800s, or it might be I think it's mid 1800s. There was a lot of really interesting things going on. It seems like a lot of spiritual awakening, and a lot of technological development. But what he brought to my attention, the way he came through, was when I was thinking about the winking and blinking of her eye, and something that Tesla was known to do, as well as many other geniuses, was they didn't actually sleep all night. They would take a nap and then wake up so they could get more work done. And I thought it was
Mm.
interesting because I saw while he was napping, it was like Algol's eye closed and he's getting to see into the mystery and the this like quantum field, and he's waking up with his new ideas and he's jotting them down and like continuing on his inventions. And something that was really interesting about him as well is he was incredibly clairvoyant, which he thought was like a malady. He thought it was something he was suffering from, but he actually would see these inventions and imagine how they worked before he even made them. He never even made a drawing. And so
Yes, who was Michelangelo had that kind of thing too.
I believe it. Yeah. And so what's also interesting is he also said, if you want to know the secrets to the universe, look at the numbers 3, 6, and 9, which are all feminine numbers in numerology. And I think it's really interesting with the Vedic cosmology, how that unknown space is more masculine, because I think I've always had it in my perception that that's the feminine. So it's interesting to sort of flip the two for me.
Yeah, well, it's the still point,
Okay.
and then it's the goddess that takes it and manifests with it.
Okay.
So
So it's
she's
not
right,
necessarily
she
like
has the
space.
seed of the masculine,
Mm-hmm.
and she's gestating it and creating with it.
Okay. Okay, I gotcha. So she still
Something
is
like that.
like that space that keeps like um creating and
Mhm.
fractalizing into all these different forms.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um, I saw online somewhere some old in some FBI thing,
Hmm.
a woman who had said that Nikola Tesla was actually born on Venus.
It's interesting. I looked into that because you were sharing it with me, and I thought, I don't know, it just doesn't resonate with me. And I'm wondering where this comes from. And I went and I looked at the FBI files, and it seems that this was something somebody else said about him. So I'm not sure what to do with that information, but there's another story that he tells about his birth that is really kind of amazing in a way, as we're talking about like the mother as well. When his mother was giving birth, there was a lightning storm, and the midwife said, "This is going to be a child of darkness." And the mother said, "No, this will be a child of light." And I see like that Uranus and Algol right there, like the lightning and the darkness, you
Well,
know?
I like both stories,
Yeah.
actually. I like both stories. Yeah, so talking about Algol, there's a whole big myth, and it's a big part of the sky, big swath of the sky that has the storyline with Medusa and Perseus and Andromeda and Cassiopeia and
Mhm.
Cepheus, the king, husband of Cassiopeia, and the sea serpent. I mean, did I say Andromeda? I mean, it's a whole big, and when I was stargazing for years, when I was living in the Caribbean, that is one of the big stories that was out in the winter sky. And
Mhm.
um, so most people probably won't remember this, but I do, because I was stargazing down there in 1995 and 96. And each of those years, there was a comet that went through the sky.
Hmm.
Hyakutake and Hale-Bopp. And I forget, I think Hale-Bopp was first, but it went from say it went like that way in the sky. And the next one, the Hyakutake, was hanging out for the longest time. We could see it for weeks. And if Hale-Bopp went this way, Hyakutake went this way.
Hmm.
And there was a crossing point. And some anthroposophic astrologers wrote about the crossing point, which was the star Algol.
Whoa.
So X marks the spot. So there was something about that star that got very activated by these visitors, these cometary visitors.
Do you
So
remember what year that was, or around what year?
95 and 6,
Mm,
95 and 6.
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So can I read again? I want to read a section from
Yeah,
my book.
please.
It's about Medusa. Is that Eye of Medusa looking at you? Or do you look out through her eyes if you've got her in your chart, and I know people who have their sun sign on Algol. It's not an easy place. They have pretty intense, viewpoints. The star name Algol means the demon from the Arabic. It has a negative and dangerous reputation, auguring violence, disasters, and death, especially beheadings, which
Hmm.
is what happened to Medusa.
Yeah.
Astrologer Bernadette Brady, who wrote Brady's book of fixed stars, associates the star with the rage and grief of women and traditional peoples for millennia of patriarchal subjugation, suppression, and repression of women and feminine wisdom.
Hmm.
Because the star circles slowly through the zodiac over 26,000 years, it implicates and it engages multiple generations in a shared experience, evoking collective memory and a call to participate in these issues. Such a journey taps our inner core strength and may feel like being pulled through a black hole.
Hmm.
Feelings of vulnerability, rage, despair, rejection, and isolation are stirred up. As if on an archaeological dig, layer after layer is uncovered and reclaimed as we sift through dirt and ruins that have buried the soul, and we come home to ourselves.
Hmm.
Committing to deeper spiritual aspects of the self may at times appear like betrayal to others,
Hmm.
but it is as it is. So
Wow.
that's one of apparently the Hebrews used to call Algol Lilith. And
Hmm.
that's why it's in my Lilith book.
Yeah.
It talks about 4 dimensions of the cosmic feminine named Lilith. So this is the most collective one because it is a star and has that very long cycle. So the 1995-6 crossing of Algol would have been evoking something, but also this is now being activated by Mars and Uranus, which is well, Mars and Uranus are very volatile together, you know, and so we'll have to see what actually happens on the ground with that. And Taurus is a grounded sign, but also it's a wake-up call, which might mean there's something that just kind of blows our minds, you know, it's sort of like, wow, am I really seeing what I'm seeing? But it also, that paralyzing eye, as you mentioned, is a paralyzing eye that stops us in our tracks, like Saturn and Neptune going, you know, stopping and going retrograde. It's like a moment where we are looking into something very deeply and we're just either mesmerized by it, we can feel trapped by it, we can feel compelled by it, but there's something that we have to be looking at and we don't want to maybe look at this. But that could be many things that are coming to light, you know, these days from what's been going on behind the scenes or, you know, behind the surface or under the surface of things. So,
well, one thing that came to my attention, if you're talking about the world stage, is that Donald Trump has his Algol conjunct his MC. So that's about to get hit by Uranus and Mars. And it's like, it will be interesting to see what happens with him on the world stage, with it being right there on his MC. And I'm
really,
not,
I haven't heard that. Okay, it's probably, you know, I trust you for saying that. I haven't taken that into consideration before, but his Mars is also at 29 Leo, so it'd be squared that Algol.
yeah, so that should be interesting because there's already some things in the works with him. And I just feel like with Uranus, it's completely unpredictable. And we just have
Well,
to,
he's already completely unpredictable with his sun conjunct Uranus, and he's born on an eclipse of the moon.
I would say
So,
he's definitely living out his purpose to shake things up.
okay,
Whether,
I'm
no
going to
matter
mention
how you
this.
feel about him, you know?
I wasn't going to mention this, but I am now because you
Okay.
brought up the Trump name.
Yeah.
So his uncle, John Trump, was a very well-regarded electrical engineer. And when Tesla died, he was brought in to look at all of the papers of Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't made that connection. That is so interesting. Huh. So we'll have to see if something unfolds in that regard as well. That would be really surprising, but I would love it if it was something beneficial.
Well, let's go for that.
All
We're going
right.
for
Yeah.
beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah. With the power of intention, right? I mean, that's what I'm
Yeah.
hoping for. I really hope that the thing, you know, Rudolf Steiner always said that we will continue to create, man will continue to create technologies that just imitate what he already has within himself until he just runs out of ideas, you know? And so I'm hoping that
Mm.
we get to that point. But another part of me feels like I know there's so many things, you know, we haven't really even dove into AI, which I feel like is sort of a part of this as well. Um, but there's so much that we're looking for outside of us that we
Yeah.
already have within, you know? And so I really hope that perhaps this transit helps us to see that in some way, you know?
Well, Uranus and Taurus, what you just said stimulated this idea for me, which is Uranus and Taurus is about embodiment.
Mm-hmm.
It's about of higher consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's awakening the spiritual technologies we already have within us.
Yeah. Yeah. It
Uh,
feels like there's a race almost, like there's a race. It almost feels like our acceleration of consciousness and spiritual development. For me, it's been a very, very accelerated path, as I know it has been for a lot of people. Um, it feels like it's almost a race against what we're creating on the ground. You know what I mean?
I think the Earth is going to have something to say about it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the Earth is awakening. I think that's part of the Uranus and Taurus as well.
Yeah.
Taurus is the deepest grounded sign. It's like a tree with deep roots,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes down really deep. And we can actually follow that down to the core of the Earth if we want, and kind of imagine and find out what is even down there, what is even under the Earth or at the core. I don't think it's a big ball of lead. I think it's probably crystalline. I think it's probably vibrational. Whatever makes the world go around.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that the whole larger myth here of Perseus cutting off the head of Medusa. Now
Mm-hmm.
that could, because a lot of Greek myths are pretty misogynistic, and that can look like a kind of patriarchal, kind of negative thing.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting, his whole trip. And I've been revisioning this whole myth for years because my North Node is conjunct the Andromeda star Alpheratz.
Mm.
And he saves Andromeda from the sea monster is the myth,
Mm-hmm.
but we got to think that she saves him too.
Mm.
Um, anyway, that sort of happens in my story in a way. Anyway, so Perseus has this long journey and has to go and find um the all the stuff he's going to need to cut off the head of Medusa.
Yeah.
So, fast forwarding to that moment when he's using his shield that was given to him by Athena, the goddess of wisdom, that can reflect. So he was using the reflection from the shield to see Medusa, so he wasn't looking her right in the eye.
Right.
So it's the power of reflection to deal with very challenging, like monstrous stuff, we could say.
Yeah.
And then, so here's a quote from, I'm reading a lot of quotes today because I was looking at a lot of my material that I've gathered over the years.
Yeah.
And this is from Edward Edinger, I think another Jungian. And it's from his book called The Eternal Drama, The Inner Meaning of Greek Mythology. And he's talking about the Perseus myth.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about when he cuts off the head of Medusa using that shield as a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, it is as if the decapitation of the Medusan horror has the effect, and think star Algol, has had the effect of transforming the negative energy contained in her and releasing it into positive creative power, signified by the horse Pegasus, because Pegasus flew out of her severed neck.
Mm-hmm.
The winged, on the wings of imagination, we could say.
Yeah.
So it released something that was both a symbol of physical energy that is at the same time winged. So physical and spiritual at the same time. And he
Yeah.
goes on to talk about how Pegasus later, he struck the ground with his paw, and a spring started flowing from that place in the ground, and that was the spring of the muses. So
Wow.
the arts derived from Pegasus, and the ultimate source was Medusa,
Hmm.
because she was the mother of Pegasus.
Yeah.
So I think that's very interesting, just that little clip right there.
Yeah, it is. And it speaks so much, when you were something I think about with Perseus is his sword was a crystal sword, right? Which
Ooh.
I feel like represents this like crystalline consciousness, like cutting through, you could say perhaps that snaky head could represent the ego or the lower nature, right? But I also felt that in a way he was almost putting her out of her misery because she was
Oh,
beautiful before and she was cursed by Athena, right? To have that terrifying look and to turn people to stone. And then didn't he go on to use her head to as a weapon like after that? Like he could just take it out and
oh,
shoot it at people?
to to turn the sea monster to stone.
Yeah. Yeah, so
In
it's
my story, in my story, he has told Andromeda his story. Well, not quite yet. He has her hold the bag. And so
okay.
she's the one who takes it out. Actually, that's not my version. I was involved with a mythic theater company called Dragon Dance Theater. And they enacted that myth one year, and that was their storyline.
Yeah.
That, that she was holding the bag and took the head out. But anyway, there's so many ways of re-envisioning. And one of my ways after living in the Caribbean for so many years is, and looking at the history of Medusa and the snaky hair, which could be like the rays of the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she could have been an ancient sun goddess.
Mm-hmm.
But my version is she had dreadlocks. And
Mm-hmm.
so they looked like snakes because she was from Africa. Her lineage was from Africa,
Oh,
Medusa.
interesting. Huh.
Yeah, so there's so many ways to engage with a myth, you
Yeah.
know, as it is, or to revision it. And this is certainly time to revision freeing Andromeda, both freeing Medusa
Mm-hmm.
on the wings of imagination, but one of the stars that marks the great square of Pegasus in the sky is also the head of Andromeda. And so it's a star that connects Pegasus with the goddess.
Mm-hmm.
And, we have the Andromeda galaxy. We can see the galaxy when we're stargazing, we can see it fuzzily, even with the naked eye, or at least with binoculars. And
Mm-hmm.
it's right in her waist area. So
Oh,
she is pregnant with the Andromeda galaxy.
wow. How
Yeah,
cool.
so we want to free her. She's known as the chained lady. We need
Yeah.
to free her. And her star, Alpha Rats, is at 14 Aries.
Mhm.
And the North Node has just gone over that star.
Wow. So you're having a nodal return as
Yes.
as we're talking about this and freeing. I feel like that's what your work is all about is really a lot of what I take away from it is like there's so much remembering and then the reclaiming. Like even I love how earlier you were like, well, let's make it happen. Like you're really showing with Andromeda on her Pegasus, reclaiming that creative power that I feel like has just been suppressed and forgotten for so long.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's a feminine power because we have the creation, the birth.
Right.
We are capable of birth. The divine masculine is there to seed that, but we gestate that, and we are doing that now. And
Yes.
we have both the masculine and feminine in us.
Right.
So we can't just project, patriarchal onto men.
Right.
They've been victims of that as well.
Right.
So it's more of finding the new engagement with those energies, and with this higher consciousness coming in, we're beheading the ego,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah.
I'm feeling like maybe Uranus is helping Mars remember, in this meeting, like helping
Oh,
masculine get in touch with this remembrance of that feminine power and it doesn't have to be a competition, you know? Just I think the
and
reflect
again, it's the masculine within us women as well.
yeah, yeah.
I think that's
Right.
part of the sort of gender dysphoria going on. In
Yeah.
fact, we have both the masculine and the feminine within ourselves. And I think
Right.
some people are wanting to express that,
Yeah.
in ways, but that this is kind of what is happening now, and that, I had another thought that I have to bring out again. So Pluto,
Mhm.
basically, to me, is where we claim our power or we give it away.
Mhm.
And that goes, I don't want to discuss this whole thing right now about AI, but that's where we could give our power away to that.
Right.
Or we can claim our power and use technologies that are life enhancing.
Right. Right.
And the whole thing about embodiment right now of higher consciousness with Uranus and Taurus is definitely getting a shadow workout,
Mm.
with this Algol conjunction and with Mars activating that in a way that can help free the energy in our own bodies.
Mm. Mhm.
With all these light waves coming in and these frequencies and the auroras and the solar flares, we have a lot more photon activity,
Yeah.
shimmering and changing the magnetic field of the earth, but our own magnetic field. So our bodies are really, kind of needing to lighten up.
Yeah.
And so that's working through the ancestry, our shadow issues from past lives, and detoxifying our bodies as much as possible
Yeah.
with frequencies. And that has to do with how we're thinking about things. And
Mm.
it's so important how we're thinking about things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up because I think I've felt such a long period of having to feel, I mean, to points where it's just absolutely exhausting.
I
Do you-
I don't, I wonder, I think true feelings, I mean, coming from the heart. Okay, so coming from the heart, it's a more intelligent organ than the head.
Right,
So this is about really listening to the heart and letting the heart inform the head. But we're so educated to think, 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 and
yeah.
our monkey minds go crazy. And so this is, just breathing and settling into the body and feeling our heartbeats and feeling what is touching us here. And that's true feelings, you
Right,
know,
right. Well,
that's our,
for me, it just felt like there was so much, and maybe this is a Capricorn thing because I think Capricorn probably takes on too much of a burden of others sometimes. But it felt like so much ancestral stuff I was clearing through my own body and my own, like feeling their emotions and you know what I mean? Like it was almost like I had to clear so much to be able to get to that heart space, if that makes sense.
yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's part of the teachings of the Holy Womb chakra,
Mhm.
that it holds the memories of all of our lifetimes and it has a direct impact on the heart.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So working through all that ancestry and the womb of the mother and her mother and her mother and her
yeah.
mother.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess I just bring that up so that if there's anybody who's in that place too, that they know that's okay too, but I really like what you're saying about the lightning and really noticing your thoughts as well, because something that's become more prominent for me that I love is just this feeling of presence and trust in a lot of situations where I don't need to like ask what if or is this the right thing and the wrong thing. I'm like, hold on, let's just like settle in and feel with the body. What does it feel good or no? And can I honor that? It's quite a
Yeah.
practice for sure to let go
Yeah.
of the monkey mind.
Well, that goes back to the Uranus, the higher mind embodied as well. It's coming through the body. That's a good point. And just to kind of come back to Neptune for a moment with its imminent shift here and this clearing we're doing of also the let's see spiritual pollution. I don't know what to call it, but it's
Yeah.
like clearing. We are clearing. And again, it's like a wave on the shore and its undertow is pulling things out. And, the reality we've known is dissolving with all these structures coming down with Pluto and Capricorn. And it's very disconcerting, but
Yeah.
it puts us back on like, okay, how am I doing here? What am I going to
Yeah.
do with this? And with that Neptune in Pisces, really activating compassion and forgiveness for yourself
Yeah.
as well as others.
Yes.
We're all in this together, and that's one of the biggest lessons of Neptune in Pisces.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like Jupiter in Gemini has been helping me so much with that, just being able to have more compassion because I just feel like I've been able to see different perspectives and just not be as attached to how I used to feel about things. So I just love how the planets and the sky make these alignments that are just set us up. I feel like they set us up for success. And that's kind of a reframing too from what a lot of astrologers
Absolutely.
have taught, you know. It used to
Yeah.
be like very more I guess you could say patriarchal, like, oh, they're coming in to punish you, you know. It's like actually,
Well, that's an old view for sure, but
yeah.
that's also claiming the power,
Hmm.
of, I can when I have a consciousness of these energies, of these archetypes that I'm working with, they're inviting me in, I can bring them to another level of consciousness.
Hmm.
And, you can believe that the universe is out to get you, or you can believe that, and that the black hole is eating all the light, or you can believe that the universe is beneficent and for our awakening and our lightening,
Yeah.
and then think that the galactic center, the heart of the Milky Way galaxy, is indeed the playground of Shiva Shakti.
Mm, yeah. Gosh, well, thank you so much, Kelley. Was there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap it up? Anything that we missed?
I think we've made a really good circle right now, and
Yeah,
that there's so much more to talk about always, but we'll have to do it
yeah.
another time. And just that, um, and Cancer is such a tender-hearted sign. Just take care of yourself. Self-care is
Mhm.
really, really important right now.
Absolutely. Yes. And
Yeah.
I love talking to you because I feel like I'm newer to like my academic understanding of astrology, but I feel the energies come through me so much. So it's so fun that I can express myself and you can say, well, these are the planets or the voices that I'm hearing, you know. I really love
Um,
that back and forth.
um,
So appreciate
mhm.
you. And
Well, I appreciate you too. Thank you for these dialogues.
yeah, and your wisdom too. So where can people find you?
Well, I have my website, www.heliastar, Helia, that's the female sun energy, heliastar.com. And I also have a Substack now where I do post a lot of stuff. And that is starlady.substack.com. And I send out my long time new and full moon newsletters that way, Cosmic Inspiration News. But I add other things on because Substack really does stimulate creativity, gotta say. And so I'm putting more images up and more different things. So that there's a lot on there. And not to say I don't have a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff posted on my website too, about the cosmic feminine, about the new solar system energies, about astrology. And I still am doing readings because I just love that way of engaging with people. You and me and the field of astrology is never dull, is never rote. It's always new dimensions coming up as we are moving into new dimensions of consciousness as well.
Yeah.
So
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I'll have all the links in the show notes as well, so people can easily find that information. All right. Well, I'm wishing you all well through all of these interesting energies that we've been navigating
It's
the waters.
time. Yes, right. So astrology is helpful in that way, isn't it? Like, here's part
Absolutely.
of the themes that are coming up with these energies aligning.
Yeah.
So anyway, blessings abound, and may everyone have a beautiful season.